Thursday, January the 13th. Lake level is about 914 and a half, which is about 6 inches below normal winter power pool. And the water temperature, it depends where you're at. Today and yesterday I was up in the James River, up around Cape Fear, and the water's about 43, 44 in the morning. A few days ago I fished down the Kimberling City area, and the water was a little bit warmer down there, 46, 47 to start with. But I haven't done a fishing report in about 3 weeks. I've been gone. So I'm going to try to get back on track and do one every Wednesday to keep you guys informed of what's going on. And, like I say, I had to get out a few days myself to find out what was going on. Looked like y'all had, beautiful weather over the holidays, and it got a little chillier, and it looks like we got some weather coming in again this weekend. But anyways, I got to fish 3 days the past week. And I found the bite for me to be a lot better when I went down towards Kimberling City and Ants Creek area, the mouth of the White and the James .9. And the way I caught them down there, I didn't do much deep fishing. I hadn't been out for a while, so I was mainly wanting to, play around with a jerk bait in the Alabama rig. And this, the one that seemed to work real good for me is a Nanco Reaction. It's got a little purple flash on the side. It's a Spro McStick. Really good looking bait, especially in that clear water. Normally if it's, cloudier, I'll throw like a solid color bait, but I had, bright sunshine, high skies. And it seemed like I tried in the creeks on secondary points. Where I ended up getting my bites was out on Main Lake, like bluff ends and channel swings. Seemed like I had to have deep water close by for the jerkbait, even though I may have only been setting in 20, 25 foot casts into cedar trees and hardwoods that were in 15 to 20. I couldn't get a bite unless I had like 50, 60 foot of water, cast behind me. And it was the same thing on the Alabama rig. I had to be real close to deep water, and I did catch some on some gravel flats right before they rolled off into deep water on some brush piles. But, I caught several good quality fish. Probably had about 7 keepers and, 2.5 to 3.5 pound range. I was only out 3 or 4 hours. And then the last 2 days I came up here to the James River trying to do the same thing, and I could not hardly get bit on Main Lake on the deeper pattern. So I had to go, start fishing in the creeks. And they really weren't on secondary points. They was just, half, 3/4 of the way back in the creeks, as long as I had 20 foot of water. And it seemed like the fish were on flatter banks. They were relating more to rock than like the fish a few days before Kimberling were relating more to wood. I seen very, very little shad any of the places I was fishing. I think a lot of the shad are still out in the middle of the lake. But normally when you get a couple days, like today and yesterday, you get a warming trend. I think what's more important than anything is just consistent weather. It seemed like, excuse me, a lot of them fish, some of them will start to move up shallow. And, everything I caught down lake was largemouth. Pretty much everything I've caught up in the James has been largemouth. Not too many shorts, not a ton of bites. Having to work for the bites that I get, but they're all, solid keeper fish. Did try, rock crawler and wigglewort some both days. Today we had a lot more wind, and I felt like, especially later in the afternoon, that maybe some of them fish get up there a little shallower and bite that crankbait. What's weird is they would bite the A-rig in the same depth of water where I was throwing a crankbait, but for some reason they didn't want the crankbait. The Alabama rig, up in the James, I'm fishing it pretty shallow. A lot of times it's bouncing off the bottom, and like I said, I think a lot of these fish are just relating to the rock. They're coming up off the bottom. It seems like if I get the rig down on the bottom and then just keep it about 1 or 2 off. But as far as the baits I was using, I was like a 2.8 and a 3.3, a Big Bite Pro Swimmer. Kitex will work, Bass Pro, Speed Shads, but I have real good luck with the Big Bite Pro Swimmers. And it's like a bluegill flash. I try to keep shad colors. Water's pretty clear. Even up at the James, it's got 3-4 feet of visibility. But I was throwing 1/8 ounce heads, and I was mixing it up between, with blades and without. It was kind of hard to tell, you know, no more bites than what I was getting, which one was working better. It's kind of funny, you'd be fishing along for quite a while, and when you'd find one that wanted it, you try to take the rod out of your hand. They were really hitting it hard. And you know, the jerkbait was a pretty subtle bite at both ends of the lake that I fished. Seemed like I had to let it set, 5 to 8 seconds in between pauses, and most of those bites came when the bait was setting, dead still. But, the last few days have been gorgeous. It looks like we got some weather coming in this weekend. It's probably going to cool that water down some more. So, like I said, I haven't done any deep fishing. I'll probably get out and see if, the bait's out in the middle of the lake like it was before I went on vacation, where I've just been out there playing, just kind of been mainly sticking with the jerkbait and the Alabama rig, because, jerkbait's probably one of my favorite things to throw. And, after fishing the last 2 or 3 months vertical, I was ready for a break to fish something a little bit shallower. So something I'll try to also mix it up with is, start fishing a jig some in the same places I'm throwing that Alabama rig and jerkbait, especially like up in the James where I was at today, where a lot of them fish were relatively shallow. I think a guy could take a small finesse jig, or maybe even an underspin, or just a single tail grub or a swim bait, and just kind of scratch the bottom with it and catch some fish. So I'll get a little bit more consistent with my fishing reports, get some more time on the water, and hopefully have a little bit better information for you. Till next week, good luck, good fishing.